Have you noticed how everything feels heavier lately? Not the kind of tired that fades after sleep. Not the kind of exhaustion that disappears after a quiet weekend. This is a different weight, a deeper one. A weight that does not sit in your muscles, but in your chest. Your steps feel slower than they used to. Your thoughts feel thicker, harder to move through. Your future feels less defined, less predictable, less friendly. It feels as if life slowly turned the volume down on everything that once distracted you. The conversations became fewer. The messages stopped. The invitations disappeared. The noise faded without warning. And now you're left with something most people spend their entire lives running from: silence. At first, silence feels uncomfortable. Then it feels suspicious. And eventually, it feels terrifying. Because silence does not entertain you. It does not reassure you. It does not congratulate you for surviving another day. Silence does not lie. Silence asks questions. Questions you avoided. Questions you postponed. Questions you drowned in noise. Most people believe loneliness is what breaks them. They believe isolation is proof that something went wrong. They believe being alone means they failed at life. But that belief is false. Loneliness does not break you. It exposes you. It reveals what was never built strong enough to stand on its own. When the noise disappears, what remains is structure. And if the structure is weak, you feel it immediately. You feel it in your anxiety. You feel it in your indecision. You feel it in the constant need for reassurance. Here's the truth that almost no one tells you. Nothing powerful is built in noise. Nothing precise is built in chaos. Nothing meaningful is built while everyone is watching. Everything real is built away from the crowd. Every deep transformation begins unseen. Every strong identity is forged where applause cannot reach. It begins in solitude. What you're experiencing right now is not weakness. It is not failure. It is not punishment. It is construction. You are under construction. And construction never happens in the middle of comfort. It never happens while everything feels familiar. It never happens while everyone has access to you. When something important is being built, the area is closed, restricted, quiet. Not because it's empty, but because it's serious. Solitude is not a prison. It is a controlled environment. It is the workshop where raw material becomes structure. Most people never enter this workshop. They circle around it for years. They stand outside the closed door and feel fear. They tell themselves stories about why they can't go inside. They say they're too busy. They say they're not ready. They say they need someone else with them. They say they'll enter later. But the truth is simpler and harder to accept. They are afraid of what they might hear once the door closes behind them. Because inside the workshop, there is no audience, no validation, no applause, no distraction. There is only you. And the human mind is wired to escape that encounter. The mind does not fear pain as much as it fears responsibility, because responsibility means ownership, and ownership means there is no one left to blame. Silence removes all hiding places. In silence, the mind cannot outsource meaning. It cannot borrow identities. It cannot echo other people's opinions. It must speak in its own voice. And that voice is often not kind at first. It reminds you of moments you avoided, of conversations you escaped, of decisions you postponed, of standards you lowered just to feel accepted. It reminds you of instincts you ignored, of boundaries you didn't defend, of potential you sensed but didn't pursue.
It reminds you of the distance between who you are and who you quietly know you could be. So most people run. They fill the silence with constant input, scrolling endlessly, talking without depth, listening without intention, consuming without awareness. Not because it helps them grow, but because it protects them from accountability. Noise becomes a shield against self-examination, a shield against responsibility, a shield against choice. And here's the dangerous part. When you fill your inner world with the voices of others, you slowly surrender authorship of your life. Other people begin to define what is normal for you, what is acceptable for you, what is too much to want. Their limitations become your limits. Their fears become your caution. Their compromises become your ceiling. You may think you're just listening. You may think you're just staying informed, but in reality, you're delegating. You're handing over the blueprint of your life to people who are not responsible for the outcome. You're hiring external engineers to design your internal structure, and every design reflects the values of its designer. So the question you must face is uncomfortable but unavoidable. If you're not consciously designing your life, then who is? Everything begins with identity. Not the identity you show to the world, not the identity that earns approval, but the identity you answer to in silence. Most people never choose who they are. They accept what is handed to them. They become the reliable one, the quiet one, the strong one, the one who doesn't complain. These labels feel safe. They feel familiar. They feel earned. But they are roles, and roles are not identity. Roles are performances designed to survive environments, not to fulfill potential. Solitude is the moment the performance ends. It is the moment you close the door, remove the mask, and admit the truth. That you have been reacting more than choosing. That you have been adapting more than directing. That you have been surviving more than building. This is where real construction begins. Not with motivation, not with confidence, not with inspiration, but with choice. Two words carry more power than most people realize. I choose. Not I am, not I was, not I hope, not I wish. I choose. Choice is an act of authority. When you say, I choose, you stop negotiating with circumstances. You stop asking permission from fear. You stop explaining yourself to the past. You move from description into definition. This is not positive thinking. This is not self-deception. This is engineering. Engineering always begins with specifications. You must decide who you choose to be when things become uncomfortable. You must decide how you choose to act when pressure rises. You must decide the standard you choose in how you treat yourself. These decisions are not emotional. They are structural. They determine what your internal system can carry without collapsing. They determine how much pressure you can tolerate before breaking. They determine how much responsibility you can hold without running. And once these specifications exist, something uncomfortable must happen. Anything that does not align must be removed. Habits that weaken you, patterns that drain you, behaviors that contradict your direction, relationships that anchor you to old versions of yourself. Not out of anger, not out of resentment, not out of superiority, but out of precision. Demolition is not destruction. Demolition is preparation. You cannot build a stronger structure on a weak foundation. You cannot upgrade your future while protecting everything from your past. Letting go is not betrayal of who you were. It is loyalty to who you are becoming. Once the blueprint exists, however, it must be acted upon. A design without execution is fantasy. This is where most people fail. They wait for intensity. They wait for confidence. They wait for certainty. They tell themselves they will start when it feels right. But transformation does not come from dramatic moments. It comes from quiet repetition. Consistency is stronger than motivation. Consistency is stronger than talent. Consistency is stronger than emotion. Real change is built in private. Public discipline depends on visibility. Private discipline depends on integrity. This is where a pact is formed, a pact between you and yourself. No witnesses, no applause, no validation. A promise that exists even when no one is watching. One small action you commit to daily, not because it impresses anyone, not because it looks powerful, but because you said you would. The size of the action does not matter, its reliability does. Every time you keep that promise, something invisible but powerful happens. You deposit trust into yourself. Trust is currency. Without it, every big decision feels heavy. Without it, every challenge feels overwhelming. Without it, doubt becomes louder than direction. When you trust yourself, you move differently, you speak differently, you choose faster, you hesitate less. This trust is not built through words, it is built through kept promises, even small ones, especially small ones. But even with structure and discipline, there remains one final battlefield, the mind. The mind never stops broadcasting. It replays memories, it predicts outcomes, it imagines danger, it exaggerates consequences. In solitude, this broadcast becomes louder, and many people make the mistake of believing that every thought deserves attention. It does not. A thought is not an order. It is a suggestion. You are not obligated to obey it. You are the authority in your inner world. When a discouraging thought appears, resistance is not the answer. Resistance gives it energy. Instead, awareness disarms it. Question the thought. Examine it. Follow it to its conclusion. Ask what happens next. Fear thrives in vagueness. Clarity weakens it. Once clarity exists, direction can replace panic. Difficulty is not an ending. It is a variable, and variables can be worked with. This is how control is established, not by silencing the mind, but by directing it. When identity is chosen consciously, when discipline is practiced privately, when the inner broadcast is governed intentionally, solitude changes form. It no longer feels empty. It no longer feels threatening. It no longer feels abandonment. It becomes functional. Silence becomes material. Time becomes resource. Isolation becomes leverage. This is where strength is built. Not the loud kind, not the aggressive kind, not the performative kind, but the quiet kind. The kind that holds under pressure. The kind that does not need validation. The kind that does not collapse when no one is watching. Noise creates followers. Silence creates leaders. Solitude did not come to weaken you. It came to introduce you to the version of yourself that does not need permission, approval, or consensus. The question you must answer is simple. Will you build or will you wait for noise to rescue you from your own potential? Choose where you will begin, commit to it, return to it daily, and notice what changes when you stop running from silence and start working inside it. The road is long, the process is demanding, the results are not immediate, But now you have direction, you have structure, you have responsibility, you have a blueprint. Keep building.